Give a big old wave. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. If you are in the eastern states of Australia, it's 8 a.m. your time for episode 23 of Coffee with Campus Consultancy. And if you like our amazing guest, Mackenzie, this morning, or if you're in South Australia, it's 7:30. So Mackenzie, who I'll introduce you to in a second, has got up even earlier for you today to talk about how to secure a graduate job. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute after this quick introduction. Alrighty, my friend. How are you doing?
Very, very well. How are you going?
I'm very, very well. If people are curious, who is Mackenzie Thompson? How do you normally describe yourself when you're introduced, or if it's interview, podcast, live, or just when you're chatting down and helping someone find a grad job? How do you describe yourself?
Yeah, well, this is actually my first podcast type event, so
Awesome.
I haven't actually done it on here before.
Well,
Usually
welcome.
what I say is, so I run grad jobs. That's the thing that I'm focused on most at the moment. But I'm also part of a management consulting firm called Z in South Australia. I've lived across 7 different countries, the last of which is Australia. And yeah, I have a bit of experience in economics and consulting and startups.
Mate, I didn't know that about you. What countries have you lived in?
Okay, so I've lived in 3 different Caribbean islands. Yeah,
It sounds like a Netflix follow-up to the Fire movie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Golly,
I won't
okay.
name it, but I can if you like. And England, I've lived there twice actually, and that was where I was born. Spain and Africa, and then Australia. About 10 years ago, I moved here.
Awesome. I love it. And so many people who listen in and tune in are either from overseas, have traveled overseas, or a lot of international students as well. I'm really looking at finding grad jobs. And I know sometimes people who have lived overseas and come to Australia find it different. But there are also some really common and core principles that today, if you're tuning in, we really want to give you some practical things. If you're like, I'm looking for a grad job, or you're a staff member and you're trying to help your students get a grad job, we're going to give you some really practical, actionable things that you can do and think about, as well as talking about what's different and unique in maybe the Australian market to different places around the world. So Mackenzie, if people sit down with you, if you had to take all of grad jobs and say, grad jobs is about these couple of ideas or these couple of principles, or this is how we think about grad jobs. Once they've been introduced to you and like, wow, he's so worldly, he has such suave English pullovers, it now makes so much sense. And that charming South African twang in the accent. When it actually comes to the grad job bit, why is that something of interest to you, and how do you think about that space?
Yeah, so grad jobs. Why is it interesting to me? So I think just taking it back a couple of steps, when I was at school, I was kind of like, I wasn't great as a student. Until the last few months of school, I didn't really kind of put in as much effort as I should have. And I didn't even think about kind of where I'd be once it all finished.
Yes.
And I remember this point where I got home from these parent-teacher interviews, and they just pretty much told my parents that I wasn't going to do well at all. And at that point, I kind of kicked into gear and thought about like, what happens after school, what happens after that, what is next. So that's when I became passionate about succeeding in that area. As I was kind of succeeding in that area through university, and it kind of into my grad role at KPMG, I had a lot of different people contact me. So over 2 years ago, people were kind of messaging me, "Hey, can we catch up? Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?"
How'd you get a job at KPMG, all that kind of stuff?
Pretty much, it was, most of the questions were, how do you get a job at KPMG? And also, how did you get 6 internships and have like all these cool jobs during uni when I was, studying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, sorry, what was the second part of your question? I think I forgot it.
No, you're fine. And so with that, was your answer, I got all these internships because I had 99 out of 100 scores in all my tests and assignments?
No way.
Oh, Mackenzie, if it's not, but if your grades aren't the only thing that get you a job, what else could it possibly be? And this is something we really want to demystify. So if it wasn't that, if it wasn't just sitting in your bedroom, locking yourself away and studying 14 hours a day, what was it? What did you do differently than other people who might struggle to get the internships or get the graduate job?
Yeah, I think in my case, one of the things that I guess I treated differently was the way I kind of thought about things. So one of the things I like to talk about quite a bit is kind of using first principles in how you approach the world and approach like achieving your goals.
Yes.
So when I was thinking about like, okay, I want to be here when I graduate. How do I get there? I just kind of used logic to think, how could I do that as quickly as possible? And starting early, like in year one, I'd had my first internship within like the first semester, just smashed it out, and that leads you to then kind of get this growth curve. After that, it just enables you to kick off right away and get it ahead of everyone else.
I love it. That idea starting early is a great takeaway principle. If people are in their first semester and they're like, okay, or they got through their first semester, it's not happening for them, it's coming into exams, so they're like, all right, Mackenzie, tell me what to do. I'll get one in second semester. What practically did you do from other people who got to uni, Googled internships, sent off an application and heard nothing back? Like, what did you do that was different?
Yeah. So I think I love to bring this stat up. So 70% of jobs, it's like the stat. I'm sure it's not exactly 70%, but 70% of jobs aren't advertised. And I think that goes for internships. I think it could even be more skewed for internships. Because you don't like it's more of a casual agreement. So it's easier just to kind of network and get someone in. It's not as serious as getting a job. So to find internships, you can apply, and I always recommend applying because a lot of the best companies you can get through by applying. Like for my KPMG when I applied, but things like cold emailing, this is like, I don't know how many of you guys and what you kind of talk about in your programs and things, Josh, but cold emails, they're unbelievable. So
that's just, sorry, I was just bringing up the share screen for the Business Insider article that shared that 70% stat, but they'd like me to sign up for Prime. But anyway, there it is. If anyone's wondering, like, where does that 70% stat come from? Business Insider article. But anyway, continue.
So cold emails. I would recommend cold emails. That's number one. Find a company or an organization you really want to work for. One example that I like to share is one of the people I helped quite a while ago. He wanted to get into commercial real estate, and there aren't many commercial real estate organizations in Adelaide. And he messaged all 5 of like the general managers, essentially, like the CEOs, general managers. And he just used the template that I gave him. And 2 of them offered him an internship out of 5.
2 out of 5.
Emails. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine people's next question will be, what was that template, Mackenzie, which I love too. I don't want to give away all the trade secrets too. But yeah, so people are sitting there, and in a moment we might even we've got Samir who's jumped on the line. She's wondering he's wondering how did you actually find those jobs? So if you're open to it, Mackenzie, maybe what we'll do is let's bring Samir in. Let's talk about what's something that they're looking for, and then how could they practically apply exactly what you're saying? But just so we do, before we bring on Samir, I'm going to remove this little Kua logo. Kua is our impact partner, amazing social enterprise, giving away coffee. So if you're into this, if this is helping you get a grad job, if you like the stream, tag Kua, share this, and go in the draw to win some amazing coffee. That being said, I have to remove them quickly so they don't hover over Mackenzie's face. So with that, let's bring in Samir. G'day, Samir. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're really well. Samir, tell us about where are you at in your journey towards a grad job? What are you looking for, and how can we help?
Well, I guess in my journey of grad jobs, I am trying to find one at the moment. I've just done my degree, so I just graduated from a Bachelor of Commerce in like accounting and finance, and I'm currently trying to land my grad job.
Cool. Mackenzie, when someone sits down with you, amazing as Samir, they've come on, they're sharing this with you. What sort of questions do you ask? Like, where do you go from here?
Yeah. So usually how I start it is kind of figuring out what people are looking for if they know. Because I find it useful to have like an objective to go after. After that, we kind of just diagnose. We figure out what is, like, if you're not getting one, what's happening. Because it's like this funnel as you go kind of through, and at each point, if you kind of do a little test, you can figure out, okay, well, this might be the problem, or this might be the problem.
Yeah, well, let's find out. Samir, obviously knowing that you're at UNSW, you've actually had an internship at KPMG as well, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So there's some similarity there. What is it? What are you after? What is that dream employer? Like, if we could click our fingers and give you a job anywhere, who would it be with?
I guess the dream like employer would be at like the Big Four.
So how many employers are there in the Big Four?
So you have KPMG, EY, you have like Deloitte, and you have like and you have PwC.
Cool. One of the things I hear most commonly with students, when you're like, what is your dream employer, singular? They go, the Big Four. The answer to your question is in that, my friend.
Okay. Well, from that, I would go with EY.
Awesome. Why?
Yeah. Mainly because the thing that I guess while I was at uni, I've had a chance to talk to people who work there, and from all the Big Four, like the culture there kind of like matched with me like the most.
Cool. All right. Mackenzie, we've got Samir, keen for the Big Four, keen for EY specifically, likes the culture. What would you ask Samir? How do we move that conversation forward? How do we help Samir out today?
Yeah. So the next thing I'd probably talk about is why is it specifically that company? Because I think one thing that I see all the time, like pretty much most people that come to me and talk to me, they have, like, they say the Big Four or like Mackenzie or Grant Thornton, like these specific companies, and they don't really often know exactly why. It's just like they know that company. So the next thing I'd want to figure out is it the company specifically, or is it the work? Are there other companies that you know in the field? And if you don't know other companies in that field you want to work, then we got to figure that out, because there's so many companies out there. Yeah.
Samir, I mean, you guys can chat directly. I don't even need to be the middleman. What is it for you? Ask Mackenzie, like, if you got some access, use the time.
Yes. So I guess in terms of that, like knowing the companies, I guess the way that I kind of have a few companies up there, and the main reason I guess I have the Big Four on the top is mainly for the reason that as they are the largest, I get to be at the front lines and seeing how the financial landscape is constantly changing. It gives me like a first hand like chance to actually try out all the new tools and see all the new things that are happening out there.
Got it. Okay. So I think that's very fair. That's a very fair reason for wanting to do that. And that's why a lot of people want to. Another reason might be because people see that the Big Four is like this big kind of gateway. Because once you get into Big Four, it kind of, because of the reputation, it can allow you to go other places quite easily. However, saying that, I also tell a lot of the people that I work with, there are a lot of other kind of smaller companies, boutique firms who are actually they're doing some really cool things. Like there are lots of different audit firms if you're interested in audit, lots of niche like cybersecurity firms doing all of this stuff as well. So usually, anyway, we do a bit of market research. So we actually, in my programs, I actually go through and explain kind of how to search for each of these organizations. And we build up a list, like it's essentially list building. And we go through each of the lists and we kind of rank each potential opportunity out of 10. Like, how much do I want this opportunity? And what you might find is after that process, yes, EY is still 10. Like EY is up there. EY is definitely a great place to work, but it's also challenging to get in. But you've also got 10 other places that you've researched, and they are awesome. Like you'd love to work there too. And then once we kind of open up that volume, it makes it far, I guess, not easier to get in, but it opens up opportunity for you that otherwise you'd kind of, no one else is looking at.
Yeah, it's more accessible, right? And I guess that challenge of with so many people apply to grad jobs, I think the numbers are something like it's just over 2% of applications to top 100 employers in Australia. So all top 100, let alone every commerce kid in the country wants to work for 4 companies. Like it's 2%. So you're either going to apply for 50 of them, and the problem is there's only 4 of them, or it's like you've got to be exceptional. You are exceptional. Your potential's exceptional, but like there's a bit of game playing there, and I wonder if from your experience, or Samir, if it appeals to you, if you imagine yourself in 5 years' time, if you were at EY, you might work at EY for 30 more years. But like, what does it look like over the next 5 weeks or 5 months or year or 5 years? Like, what are those other stepping opportunities to get into that big company, if that's really where you see yourself? And so I could see the idea of if it is another internship, if it is a role at a smaller organization, often smaller orgs give you way more responsibility, and responsibility is helpful because if you get more responsibility, you can over deliver and shine. Whereas sometimes in bigger organizations, it's like, this is your role, and like there's less wiggle room. So Samir, have you looked into other opportunities? Like say if EY was off the table for 2021, say that was like Big Four, nut for any reason, they freezed hiring and they didn't hire anyone else. Where else might you go? What could be the stepping stone?
I guess the next thing would be like the mid-tier firms that there are. So such as BDO. You have like Grant Thornton.
Cool. Samir, have you watched the movie A Beautiful Mind before?
I believe I have. Yeah.
Rewatch The Beautiful Mind and imagine it as grad jobs.
Okay.
The one of the challenges with when you go, I'm going to go after the big shiny thing, and if I can't get that, I'll go one step down. If I can't get that, I'll go one step down and one step down and one step down, is like, rather than going, where's a great opportunity that no one else has found, no one else is applying for, that's different, that shows that you've been thoughtful about this. And then you can even take the meta analysis of that to an employer and go, look, here's how I even got this interview. I knew I wouldn't get in the traditional way. So I went and did this, or I started a company, or I did a volunteering thing, or I did something different. So if that trickle down, I'd imagine if EY is a 10, 0 out of 10, how much do you want to work for those mid-tier firms? If EY is a 10, what's the number for those mid-tiers?
I would give it a 7.
Great. So it's 10 at the top, then it's a 7. And if you don't get any of those, I'm guessing the third tier firms, that's a 6. And further down's a 4, and further down's a 1. And all of a sudden it gets pretty depressing in the job hunt.
Yeah.
So I challenge you to shake up the thinking. If there's a great Mark Twain quote that says, when I find myself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. The majority of people go from the top, and they can't get that, they go one step down. They can't get that, they go one step down. The problem is in Australia, according to Gallup data, if you put up 7 fingers, my friend, Samir, if you put up 7 fingers, for every 7 workers in the workforce, less than 1 of them likes what they do. We're skipping the most important stage, which is what do you actually believe in? What do you want? What impact do you want to have on the world? What are your strengths? What do you love? So if I could give you a resource to look into, I'd shake up the whole process and say, watch the Alan Watts video, What If Money Were No Object? What sort of work do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? What's the environment you want to be in? Who do you want to help in the world? And then go and find someone who's helping those people. And that experience will appeal to EY much more than the somewhat Big Four. Well, if I had to be one of them, it's this one, and narrow it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Samir, if you were to jump off this call, if you were to continue with your day, if you were to go out there and do something proactive that was going to increase your employability, what's a couple of things that you might go and do?
I guess the first thing that I will do is like you said, is to figure out what kind of people I specifically want to help, and from that try to find, I guess, startups or companies that are in that specific space, and then try to see if they are hiring or not.
Yeah. How might you find out if they're hiring? Based on what Mackenzie shared before, around 70% of jobs are not advertised. How might you find out?
Well, I'll try to call them, be like, hey, here's all the skills I have. I really like what you guys do, and see what happens.
Cool. And if they don't answer your phone call, what else could you try?
So send them an email. Try to connect with people who work there on LinkedIn, and try to get in through that.
Yep. And if you had one more thing that you could try, if cold email, if LinkedIn and a phone call didn't work, what's one more thing you could do?
Could go in person, but with COVID, I don't think that's viable.
All right, that's fair. We'll let you off with that one. Let you off. But across those 3 or 4 things, even if it's events, virtual events, and you meet them virtually, rather than one employer and one graduate email, if you have 10 employers and 4 different ways to contact them, that's 40 opportunities. So you've 40x'd your scope. And you can still send that grad email. So you've got that as well. And you've got 10 more employers, startups, nonprofits, social enterprises, government, universities, whoever, and those different ways to contact them. You've got a whole playbook rather than just one sort of single shot in the dark.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, true.
Samir, you're good.
Just one other one. So
I love it.
A lot of people as well, they kind of forget, there's heaps of ways to do this, but some people forget that they actually have connections themselves. Like they have their own connections. And if they kind of don't stop to think about it. So just stop, have a think. Who do I know? Who do maybe my parents know, my sister, my brother, my grandparents, my friend's friend, and think about who knows who. Because then if you can get something that personal, and you can get a friend to refer you or a friend to give you a number, and they get a text saying, hey, I'm Bob's friend, that is incredibly powerful. And people often look past that.
I think that's a great technique. And like rather in a show rather than tell you format, Samir, also one thing you can do is jump on every LinkedIn live that's possibly talking about how to get a job. There's got to be some perks of that. What does that practically look like? What Mackenzie's just said. If I type in EY into just my relatively limited network, what comes up is 51 people that I'm first degree connections with. So if you speak to Josh and you put a compelling case in of this is why I want to work at EY, then I'm like, okay, well, here are 50 people I know. And we even had a friend on the show on Monday this week, Alex, who used to work at EY. So like 1 degree away, literally 2 days ago on the live stream was someone from EY. So like if it is that ideal company, networking and sort of playing the field a little bit, seeing who you can meet, as Mackenzie said, and just asking. I love the question whenever I meet with someone at the end, I say, who else do you know that I should speak with? And for them, that means it's not taking any more of their time, but they'll be like, oh, if I was you, I'd really speak to this person. Cool. Samir, keep us posted on how you go. I want to hear from you. Samir, one of the things, because you've come on and be super brave, like in the situation you're in, if you want to check in with myself, and definitely I'll keep Mackenzie updated, or Mackenzie, obviously. Mackenzie's a pro in this space. If you want like the support, go to Mackenzie. If you just want accountability, message me every week, Wednesday by 9 a.m., because it's 8:25, every week before Wednesday until you get a job. Send me an update, send me a message, put it in the calendar. If that's not working, once a month, give me a call. We'll check in, we'll review what you've done, and we'll keep going until we get you that job, because in 3 weeks or 3 months, I want to put out the post and I want to link back to this and say, Samir called in, this is what he did. Because if you figure it out, you'll help so many other people.
Fair. Yeah, true.
Thousands of graduates in your exact same role, and you were brave by going first. And often when you're brave and you go first, good things come. So thanks for coming on, Samir. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much.
Wednesday updates. I want to hear from you, okay?
Will do.
Done. All right, mate. Cool. Mate, that's the real deal.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. Can you imagine being like, can you imagine coming out of uni? I just brought up Samir's profile, just out of university, early 20s, I imagine, in the job hunt, and then just jumping on like a public live LinkedIn show and being like, hey guys, I need how brave is that? What a legend.
Yeah. Yes, that is amazing.
And if people are listening in, just because definitely want to give Samir the plug that he definitely deserves. I just want to bring up, just because we had him up, I'll have to connect with him. I definitely want to bring up and just share, if you're listening into this right now, if you're in the market, if you're like, oh, okay, I've got some work, I reckon I could help this guy, or I could just have a coffee with him and give him some tips. The wonderful Samir, just popping up on LinkedIn here, doing everything right. The premium account, awesome LinkedIn, knows what he's good at. student ambassador, development rep. He's done some work with amazing nonprofits before, internship at KPMG. He's doing online certificates. Like, he is doing literally everything right. Like, he will get there. He will get there. And I think what's even more important is he finds a job that he loves. You know, he's not one of those people like, we don't want to. And this is a question I'd love to ask you, Mackenzie. Like, how do you get around the idea of hacking the system to get someone into a job, but then they get in the job and they're like, ugh, like, this isn't even for me, you know? Because that was the situation for me. I kind of like met someone, went in the back door to a grad job, and then was like, oh, I don't really know if this is for me. How do you think about that? Yeah.
That's actually an awesome question. A little while ago, I was tossing up between two different ideas, because people were coming to me to say, yeah, I know what job I want. Like, I want to work with you to get this job. And then I thought, like, that's really good, and I can do that, and I've helped people do that. I do it all the time. But then I introduced this part into what I do before we actually take any more action. The first thing, we go through this worksheet, which I call the Who Am I worksheet. And I'm sure you do similar type things, but the purpose, and everyone who does it, they love it, is to figure out what drives this particular person. We ask a set of different questions to figure out what drives them. And we dive into this as well by using, I'm not sure if you may not have heard of it, but using why 3 times or 3 or 4 times. So you just ask a question, then you ask why, then you ask why, then you ask why, then you ask why. And eventually it's crazy. You come down to this set of almost drivers. Like, why do people get out of bed in the morning? And we get down to that level, and then we figure out people's strengths. We get them to ask their family, ask their friends, co-workers, ask them what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. We look at what they're interested in, and we set a really clear dream. Like, not just, I want this job. It's the first thing we do is, this is my dream. And then we work back and we say, okay, well, does this job still help you get this dream? And a lot of people actually go, not really. And then they figure out what jobs do help them. So that's a great question. I think it's working well. What do you think, Josh? What do you kind of use?
We use such a similar technique, like 5 whys technique. I love the Alan Watts "What If Money Were No Object" video. We do it in like a self-awareness sort of thing. I use the Ikigai framework. So we do strengths, what you love, what you value. The value thing I really like. We were talking about it a bit on the show yesterday, of find some people in your life who you admire and think about what you admire in them, and then those are your values. And then I would do this thing where I'm like, take that employer who you said you want to work for, pull up their values and cross-reference them against your own. And where do they overlap and not overlap? Sometimes people are like, oh, they really care about this, but that's actually not that important to me. Or I really care about this, but I don't know if that would fly there. And so I think that, like, that value conflict can be really powerful. In terms of just showing you that, like, maybe that employer is not for you. Like, I mean, it's awesome that these companies are massive. Like, they're great companies. I'm sure they do some great stuff in the world, you know, but like the idea that every student who studies a commerce degree, their dream employer is one of 4 is ludicrous. Like, it's just not, it's not how it works. The recruitment data shows you that. This employment satisfaction rates show you that. It's just, there's so much more. And I think it's great to have something aspirational and that pushes you, but like, it's not that hard, especially in Australia, to get a job that pays you an income if you work really, really hard. Like, if you get up before the sun gets up, work really, really hard, read the books, watch the TED Talks, do the podcast, do the seminars. Like, if you work really, really hard, for most people who are listening to this, who have a university degree from a great uni in Australia, like, you're going to get a job. It'll pay you an amount of money. And if you work really hard at that, surprise, surprise, you'll go up over the years. What's much rarer is someone who loves what they do, who's jumping out of bed in the morning smiling, who's working late because they can't get enough of it, who's Mackenzie up at 7:30 tuning in, doing something for the first time, because it's the mission, it's a calling, it's deeper. And getting something that does that, I think, takes a different set of questions. That's why I love your work, and I think it's so valuable. And I think these are the sort of questions that I never asked myself in my uni time. I don't think anyone asked me. It's very possible they didn't. I just had the blinders on, you know, my hands over my ears. But these are the questions I think we need to be asking more and earlier. That's what I'm obsessed with.
100%.
Ask these questions of first years.
Yeah, getting to it in first year. Oh my gosh, like you're setting yourself up for success if you can do things in first year. Because it's literally like that compound. The thing I always love to talk about as well is just the compound growth curve, like feedback loop. If you take an action and even if the result's not amazing, you measure the response of that result and you do it again and you feed it back in to your initial principle, like compound interest, and it just goes whoop.
Yep.
It's got to start first year if you can. And the other thing which I want to mention as well, because I totally agree with you, and the issue as well with all these commerce students wanting the 4 firms is realistically, like there are only so many places, and so many people they drop their heads, they get upset, they get disheartened, and I see it all the time. Like people come to me and say, oh, like I didn't get a job at EY, I didn't get a job at KPMG, and they think, and then I ask them how many jobs they applied for, and they say, oh, only 4.
Yeah.
Like, well, don't drop your head. There's so many opportunities. You just got to keep going and put in the work.
Yep, I love it. Now, I'm pretty sure, Mackenzie, I asked you to come on until 8:30 our time, 8 a.m. your time. Do you have 5 or 10 minutes more?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Is that cool? You got a little bit of time? Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure this is resonating. We have another guest joining us this morning. We have the wonderful Cameron coming on. Cameron is Career Development in Sport and Education at RMIT. Great man, sporting a wonderful beard there as well.
Yeah, getting, I don't know, just laziness, I think, at the moment. But yeah.
I love
Lots
it.
of greys in it as well, whereas the head's still all right. So
Oh, mate,
get rid of it.
You're looking $1 million at 8:30 in the morning, 6
fresh.
weeks into COVID, Mate,
Well,
in terms of career development, you've obviously done it for people in sport. Now you're in the university space as well. What's your sort of take on this idea of when people are looking for a job? Do you feel like people know really what the job they're looking for is? Are they clear on what they want? What are some of the things that might be holding them back or standing in their way?
Well, I think the frustrating piece, which you guys talked a little bit before about getting into the heads of the first year, I would love to know the magic bullet for that. That would be awesome, because the self-awareness piece is so important.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing as well, what I talk to students about sometimes is the person who writes the job advert is not necessarily the person who's going to be employing you. It's the hiring manager. So sometimes the job adverts can be so, I don't know if vague's the right word, but they're not actually what the job is.
Yeah.
So the best way to go about that process is what you've talked about, is doing the networking, is talking to some insiders and really finding out about what the job is. Because I'm the same as you guys, the amount of students who want to work for the Big Four. And so you just need to have those realistic conversations with students. And I think they do appreciate it. I think some people would rather sit on the fence and go, oh, that's fantastic, blah, blah, blah. And while it is, but yeah, you've got to dig a bit deeper, don't you?
Yeah. Are there any questions that I 100% agree with everything you've said there, Cam. Are there any questions that you find yourself asking students? Like if you do have a lucky first year who books in to chat with you, or if you've got second, third, fourth year, whatever it happens to be, are there some questions that you like to start with? Anything that you think helps them get some clarity on what they're looking for? Or
yeah, I try to take the same approach with most students, and a couple of the first ones I ask, and it sometimes catches them a little bit off guard, is talk to me about your 3 strengths. And they could sit there, and it is sometimes an awkward opener because they've never met me before, and I'm straight away going, bang, tell me what you're good at.
Yeah,
and it's good
breaking their pattern a little bit.
3, because I do 1-hour consults, and by the end of towards the end of the consultation, I then come back to them and go, well, over this hour we've talked about this, that, and that. That's a couple of your strengths. Let's talk there. The other probably one is I also just sort of ask them, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? And I'm not just talking job. I'm talking you're going to be married, kids, dogs, whatever. I'm just trying to think the guy's name. This guy, I think it's Richard Boyatzis. He did some of the work with Goldman on emotional intelligence. But I'll forget the science behind it, but he talks about that being a great question. And when you ask a student that, or you ask anyone that, you can see a sort of light or a spark go off in the back of their head, and you've got them in that positive frame of mind as well. So I might have put them in a negative frame of mind by going, "What's your 3 strengths?" and them going,
No, not at all.
But trying to get them back in the positive. Well, let's talk 10 years down the track. Every aspect of your life that you want to share, give me a bit of information, then just sort of working from there.
Yeah. I love that. That's very much like lifestyle designy. Bill Burnett's TED talk on that is so good. He sort of says like, let's design all the different bits and then figure out like, are we actually tracking towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, some of them come to uni just trying to maximise their ATAR. To be honest, that's what they picked their course on. I mean, that's what I did 100 years ago, and that lasted a semester for me. I mean, when I was in sport, because some of the players are a bit apprehensive about education, I've still got my results from first semester uni. I'll show it to them and they go, that's my first crack at uni. And now I do have a job and I think I'm making a valuable contribution. But if you look 100%. At my first semester of uni, you'd either say this guy's hopeless or he's picked the wrong pathway, which was the case.
Yeah. And sometimes I reckon that's the signal, not the noise. Like sometimes if those grades are low, it's like maybe, and not the grades are everything at all. I'm like very much on that message. But sometimes if like you're not putting in the effort, like there's a formula to get poor grades, and it's pretty much don't be super engaged, don't go to all your classes, don't really study, don't really care. If you do all of those things, you'll be very successful at getting poor grades. And it's very unlikely that if you do the opposite, you'll get poor grades necessarily. But sometimes that I think is a signal to say, maybe this just isn't the right fit or the right time. You know, maybe your head's in, I just need a year off. I've had a hard year 12. All my friends are overseas traveling, or at least before COVID, you know, or maybe financially I'm not stable. Maybe it's just, I need a little bit of time before, or maybe I've just picked the wrong degree and I could change and pivot.
Yeah. And I think that's that self-awareness piece. Like way back then, I'd convinced myself that I'd failed out of uni because I was too stupid. Yeah. And I didn't go back to uni for about 3 years. I tried everything not to go back to uni. I headed overseas, like my folks were keen to get me back. And then when I was finally mature enough, I was just like, well, wait a minute. I didn't get through first semester uni because I figured 12 hours at uni, I don't really need to study that much. Yeah. I can play sport. I can hang out with my mates. That's why I failed uni. But I'd convinced myself after semester 1, year 1, I was just too stupid for uni. But it was a combination of, not putting the effort in and picking something to maximize my ATAR.
Always say it's the behaviors, not the being. It's the habits, not the human, that stop you getting something. It's not you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You have unlimited potential in what you can do if you care about it, if you're going to go, if you're going to commit, if you're going to get up early, stay up late, do the work, talk to the people. I think that's such an interesting unlock for people. So I wonder if anyone's tuning in, they're listening and they're thinking like, oh, maybe my marks aren't there. Maybe it's just revisiting that. Like, is it the mindset of, maybe if I just do my class, that'll be enough? And what if instead of a do enough, it was like, what would it look like for me to be world class at this? What if I was going to really show myself that I was committed?
And like the graduate job hunt, there's no shortcut.
No,
there's absolutely no shortcut to get there. And when I went back to uni for the second time and I was passionate about studying for sport management, I then was becoming top of the class, and then I finished my uni degree and I got offered a position teaching.
There you go.
I spoke to the people who went to uni with me first time round. This bloke's been offered a teaching job at a university. They'd be going, you kidding? Like, he showed no interest in what he was studying first time round.
Yeah. Cam, that's amazing, mate. I think that's such an honest version of events too. I appreciate you jumping on and sharing it with us.
No worries, guys. Great. I must confess, I've watched a couple of yours on replay, Josh, because at 8 o'clock in the morning, normally it's kid wrangling. But I've enjoyed a couple of the episodes I've watched back afterwards.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
No worries. Well done, guys.
All right.
See you
soon.
See ya.
Bye, mate. Cool. Love that insight, that idea of like just the self-awareness there of like I wasn't doing it and then I started doing it and look how things turned around.
And the other thing as well is just being honest with yourself. I feel like a lot of people are kind of living in this bubble. They think, it's going to be, I want this thing or I want that, but they're not really sure why, and they're not putting in the work, but they don't really know why. But if you're just honest with yourself, everything becomes a lot easier. Just be honest.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, for me, I always tell the story of like when I went traveling for 2 years, I literally asked myself all day, every day, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? I'd sit in gondolas in ski towns, and for the 40-minute trip up, I'd just sit there going, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with life? And I didn't know. And so one of the things that, like, if you're asking that question of like, what is my mission and purpose? Like, the honest answer is you might not know. And for me, one of the things that changed that was getting around people who did know, going to the events, going to the webinars, going to the free conferences. Like, COVID is career exploration magic right now. It's a horrible thing to go through. Wouldn't wish it on anyone. I hope it never happens again. And I hope we get through it. But there are so many free online events where people are talking about their journey. Entrepreneurs are sharing from their living room. Like, there's a huge like for good social good summit happening right now with like Jacqueline Novogratz and all these world-class speakers. It's free. And it's just people telling you about like, I didn't have it figured out either. And then I went and did this, or I traveled, or I lived in 7 countries like Mackenzie, or I went and worked for a big 4 company, and then that wasn't it. And I started my own thing. And like, I think it's just, for me, it was getting around. The answer wasn't in here without any other valuable input. I needed the books, the talks, the podcasts. And then I'd go, oh, that, you kind of thought about it like that? Well, maybe I could think about it kind of like that. And it was like doors were getting unlocked again and again and again. Just the power of better questions just has 100%. Been a game changer. Yeah. 100%. So Mackenzie, if you've been so generous with your time and your insights, a couple of things before we sort of steer people towards if they want to chat with you and actually get sort of some direct support from you, which I really recommend. It seems to be incredibly valuable. If people are listening right now and they're thinking, okay, it's May 2020, and for lots of grad jobs, they've actually closed now, which is awesome because that like a positive constraint that, you know, it's a limit. But so, okay, so,
actually, I really like that.
Yeah, you know, where's the opportunity there? So if people go, okay, I either didn't know I needed to apply by March, or I applied and haven't heard anything back, maybe I'm not in. If people wanted to do something proactive for their next step in their career, they wanted to do it in May, they wanted to do it in semester 1, they wanted to do it in 2020. What could people start doing today that would help them just move that next step forward?
Yeah. Whew. I think the 2 things that would be like the 80-20, like, you know, if you do this stuff, it's going to have a huge impact. And we've kind of talked about it before, but it's so important. First, do some market research. Like, just look out into the market. And Google's great for this, but LinkedIn is probably better, because if you can get like a free version of LinkedIn Premium for like a month or something, and use that and search for people who you think are interesting and cool, and businesses you think are interesting and cool, and just scroll, just look through and find and literally build lists of organizations you think, wow, that's cool. I don't know exactly why it's cool, but it's cool. So find them, and then just use LinkedIn, set up your profile well, and start networking and kind of showing on your profile that you're interested in working for those organizations. Because that's just going to create opportunities for you to figure out what you want, and things will just start, they'll just start coming. Sorry, third thing. The 3 most powerful things, I think, getting some sort of mentor, like just someone, doesn't matter, you know, just someone who you think is pretty cool and you wouldn't mind being a bit like, and just find a mentor, talk to them. Those 3 things, I reckon that's the biggest bang for your buck right now.
I think that's a huge idea. And I love the idea when you said like finding people on LinkedIn, and you sort of said just scroll through, and people might be like, well, what does that achieve? One of my favorite things is scroll intelligently. Scroll like you're investigating everything this person ever did. So like if I wanted to reverse engineer, if I was like, I want to be like Mackenzie, I would go through his page and go, okay, not just where is he now? What did he do? LinkedIn is their history. It's a biography, autobiography. So I'd be like, okay, what's the first thing on there? And whatever it is for Mackenzie's page, I'm like, okay, he volunteered somewhere. It's like, maybe I could volunteer there. And it's like, okay, what did he do after he volunteered there? It's like, maybe he did an online internship with Inside Sherpa or something that's free, like really practical Inside Sherpa worth checking out. Okay, well, maybe I'll do that. And then it's like you follow the steps. And it's not to say like, I'm going to do exactly what this person did. But if you can find 10 people and look at all their different pathways, one of the things you'll realize is, oh, there are actually lots of ways to get into that company or to start a business or to go traveling or to do all these different things. And so you can kind of borrow uniquely. Oh, sorry, it's a Tim Ferriss quote. He says, borrow liberally, combine uniquely, create your own bespoke blueprint. And I love that. Of like, if you hear something good that Mackenzie's done, do that. If you hear something good that I've done, add that onto your cake too. If you hear something else that Cameron shared or Samir shared, throw that in too. And then shake it all around. And 5 or 6 little things, you're completely unique. You're one of a kind. And
then just talking to them as well. Just talk to people. And just literally ask people like, how are you going? You know, your profile, it's cool. Like, I really like your profile. What, you know, do you have any tips for me on how I could, you know, become someone like you one day or something like that? You know, just have a chat with them. And trust me, people are super open. Like, CEOs of companies are happy to message you. Not all of them, definitely not all of them.
Not all of them.
Some of them do.
Some of them do. And I think that's that idea of, it's, as you say, with the 80-20, it's having been a recruiter, we get hundreds of emails a day sometimes from different people looking for jobs. Many ask the same questions. Whereas, you know, the CFO isn't getting many emails from commerce grads.
So true.
And like, you know, like go out just as something different, something that's unique that'll make you stand out. Mackenzie, thanks so much for jumping on and having a chat with us today, giving Samir some awesome advice and doing some back and forth. If people are interested in finding out more about yourself, if they're interested in finding out more about what Grad Jobs does, or how that you might even be able to support them or their friends or peers or something in the future, where can they go to learn more about you, check you out?
The best place is actually just my LinkedIn. I'm in the process of getting a website, but LinkedIn's working great. So hit me up, message me, we can book in a chat, and
Cool. I love it. I'll pop you up down the bottom. Oh, I don't know why we've got all little funky symbols. That's because you've got a cute little light bulb in your name. That's why that looks like that. Let's just share it up so we can find the amazing Mackenzie. So if anyone wants to check out his work, Mackenzie Thompson, great. Very, very cool. There's Mackenzie, and exactly what we were talking about before. If you go back through those experiences, just check out all the cool stuff that someone's done. And then find something. I always like to find something that's accessible. So if I'm a student, this is a perfect example. If I'm a student and I'm like, Mackenzie is who I want to be like in life, I'm like, okay, a Kmart retail assistant for 8 months. It's like, maybe the next 8 months, I'm going to work in at Kmart, you know, and you learn things. And then like you get the next thing, you get the next thing, you get the next thing, and it cycles up. So if you want to check out, rather than digging into Mackenzie's whole history and putting him on the spot, if you want to check him out, Mackenzie Thompson, awesome dude, very generous with his time, obviously knows his stuff. And a huge thanks to you, the man in person, for coming on today.
Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate you having me. It's I've been watching your videos for a little bit, and they're really, really good. And I think the value is huge for people in this market. So well done to you as well.
Thanks, mate. And I think honestly today with Samir is where I'd love it to get to. I'd love it to get to a point where students are calling in like, this is my challenge. This is what I want. How do we do it? Because that one-on-one is, I think, the whole kind of game. So thanks for being so generous with your time as well. And if you're listening in, thank you for listening in. This is episode number 23. We'll be on for episode number 24 tomorrow. So if you're interested in tuning in and joining us tomorrow, we'll be with Ashley Gurney, who's awesome, who has a really interesting story about developing and building his business, working with, I think, over millions of students online now in terms of delivering online kind of modules, and also the support that has for staff and universities and private accommodation providers too. So if you're interested in like student engagement, online learning, how do you sort of do something that's a bit ahead of the curve technologically wise, whatever that language is, tomorrow, the day for you, please join us, 8 a.m., 7:30 in Adelaide, about 1 a.m. in the morning in Perth. It's obviously not that, but it's pretty early. But we'll have some more later times for the Perth audience too. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow. Have an amazing Wednesday, and we'll speak with you soon.
See you guys.
See ya. All right.